Hi everyone on the live stream. Thank you for joining us for the live stream retirement ceremony for Colonel Chris Athearn. We will begin momentarily. Thank you. Hi friends, thanks for joining for the retirement ceremony of Colonel Chris Athearn. We're going to begin in about 5 minutes. Feel free to leave a comment in the chat and we'll make sure those get to the Colonel at the end. Thanks. Thanks for dialing in, Ed. We appreciate it. We'll make sure that we pass any comments to the Colonel that you all leave in the chat. Thanks for joining. We start in about 4 minutes.
This one? That's it. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. want to announce and take your seats for the ceremony? There's some in here. You want to grab some? Oh yeah, I got pockets.
I'm a baller. And Chris is gonna need it too, so.
Oh yes, they will be right. They'll be right here.
Oh, Chris. Have fun, you look great.
Thank you. You too.
I know the Colonel appreciates you dialing in, Robert. Thanks for joining us virtually. We'll be sharing these comments with him after the ceremony. I'm sure he'll be happy to hear from you. We'll be starting momentarily.
Hey, sir. So we need to add her back on the script. Pardon? Oh, sorry. I didn't hear her mic. And so here he is. So you'll put, after the commander, you'll put and his spouse, Mrs. Noah. No, Mrs. Spouse. And the spouse. That's the way everybody else.
Oh wait, I put wife.
Oh, okay. You can do wife. You can do wife. Wife, Nora, N-O-R-A. I got some big fruit, yeah. Gary. Isn't for good enough for us, right?
Okay, perfect.
Sorry, the mic's hot, so I was like,
Should I make the announcement?
yep, for everyone to take their seats.
We're good to start. We probably take the stage, right?
Yes, go
You want to do the 5
Okay.
minute?
Ladies and gentlemen, before we start today's ceremony, please silence all your electronic devices. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I am First Lieutenant Veda Reed, and I will be your narrator for today's ceremony. Today, the men and women of the United States Air Force, in keeping with one of the oldest traditions in the military service, pay special tribute to Colonel Christopher B. Athearn on the occasion of his retirement from over 35 years of distinguished service in the United States Air Force. The presiding officer for today's ceremony is General Duke Z. Richardson, Commander, Air Force Materiel Command. Please stand for the arrival of the official party and remain standing for the playing of Ruffles and Flourishes, presentation of the colors by the Hurlburt Field Honor Guard, and the singing of the national anthem by Parker, Madeline, and Sydney Athearn.
Say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing as Dr. Jim Athearn offers the invocation.
Please indulge me a moment of personal privilege before I lead us in this prayer. I'm Chris's father. His mother and I want to thank you for being here. I sense there are many stories in this room. And in honoring him on this occasion, you also honor us by being here, and we thank you. In our life journey, we do come to these significant transitions, do we not? And we want to celebrate at those times. But also, it is appropriate to mark the moment with a prayer. And it is to that I invite you to join me now. Let us pray. Almighty God, unto whom all hearts are open, all desires known, and from whom no secrets are hid, we humbly pray that in the mystery of your grace you will be with us today. We gather to celebrate and give thanks for Christopher's service of 35 years to our country in the United States Air Force. At the same time, he has been a son, a brother, an uncle, a husband, a father. He has been a co-worker, a team member, a mentor, a consult, an advisor, and a friend to many. You have given Chris a family and many friends that have supported him and with whom he has been faithful. In all these relationships we have known, you have been with us. You forgive our sin and brokenness. You heal us in our times of illness and bring us to wholeness. You strengthen us when we are weary. You guide us in our journey and give us hope. We have learned to depend upon you. Even as we have learned, we may lean on one another. We are grateful today for all the ways you have blessed us, and especially for all the ways we have been blessed through Christopher's giving of himself. As he now moves from active service to retirement, we pray that you will continue to guide him in the new ways he will find to share his wisdom and care out of his life experience and out of his devotion to you. And to your name be all the glory and the praise, and let all the people say, Amen.
Thank you, Herbert Field Honor Guard, Parker, Madeline, Sydney, and Dr. Athearn. Please be seated. At this time, I would like to recognize our special guests joining us today. Please save your applause until all have been announced. Colonel Athearn's wife, Cheryl, and their children, son Parker, daughters Madeline and Sydney. His parents, Dr. Jim and Mary Ashton Athearn. His brother, Stephen Athearn. His brother, Larry Athearn, and his wife, Debbie. Nephews, Robbie and Jay Athearn. Niece, Katie Athearn, and her husband, Captain P.J. De Benedetto. Mother-in-law and widow of Colonel Cleveland Parker, Barbara Parker. Brother-in-law and widow of Colonel Cleveland Parker, Barbara Parker. Brother-in-law of sister-in-law, Colonel Lori Macias, United States Air Force retired. Husband, Peter, and their son, Gabriel. And his sister-in-law, Julie Giddens, and her daughter, Nicole. I would like to extend a special welcome to our distinguished visitors with us today. Please save your applause until all have been announced. Mrs. Dee Dee Richardson, spouse of General Richardson. Lieutenant General Dale White, Military Deputy, Office of the Assistant Secretary for Acquisition, Technology, and Logistics. Major General Anthony Genetempo, Program Executive Officer for Command, Control, Communications, Intelligence, and Networks. Air Force Lifecycle Management Center, Air Force Material Command. Brigadier General Jason Bartolome, Program Executive Officer for Weapons and Director of the Armament Directorate, Air Force Lifecycle Management Center, Air Force Material Command, and his wife, Tracy Bartolome. Brigadier General Jeffrey Garrity, Commander 96th Test Wing, and his wife, Nora Garrity. Dr. Timothy Grayson, Special Assistant to the Secretary of the Air Force. Mr. Glenn Culler, Chair for War-Winning Weapons, Scientific Advisory Board. I would also like to extend a warm welcome to all the family, friends, general officers, senior executive service employees, industry partners, chiefs, and airmen who are here today to celebrate Colonel Athearn on his retirement. Ladies and gentlemen, our presiding officer, General Richardson.
Good morning, everybody. How are we doing? How do you think I'm doing? Terrible. Just terrible. We're going to see if we can get through this. It's not going to be easy, but we're going to get through it. Come heck or high water. It's a deep privilege. You shouldn't have asked me. I've never struggled this soon. It's a deep privilege to get to do this for Chris and Cheryl and for the Athearn family. Dee Dee and I have been friends with Chris and Cheryl for 29 years. I don't know if everyone in here knew that. I've known him a very long time. I knew him before he was Alf. I don't call him that, by the way. I knew him before he was cool. Not true. He's always been cool. Chris has always been cool. He's so cool. My kids think he's cool. Right? Oh, come on. Chris is like a brother to me. Sometimes a big brother, sometimes a little brother. It all sort of depends on the situation. I think what attracted me to Chris was he's so different than me in all the right ways. He's unique. He has strengths that I don't have. So I've always been drawn to him. Thank you for asking me to do this. The way Chris lives his life, both on duty and off duty, is what right looks like. And everybody in here knows it. So I don't know why I need to really say it, because they all realize it already. When I think of Chris, you're going to have to work with me on this, okay? When I think of Chris, I think of a Liam Neeson speech from the movie Taken. Have you all seen that? Okay. Ooh, that's right. Well, so remember when the kidnapper takes Liam Neeson's daughter, and Liam Neeson's talking to the kidnapper on the phone. Do you remember that? Quote, "I don't know who you are. I don't know what you want. If you are looking for ransom, I can tell you I don't have money." But what I do have is a very particular set of skills. Skills I have acquired over a very long career. Skills that make me a nightmare for people like you. That's Chris. I mean, not the skills to hunt people down and, well, do whatever he had to do. Not to cause nightmares and kidnappers, but My love for Chris, my admiration for Chris, traced directly to his very particular set of skills. And so I want to walk through them a little bit. The first one is, he's endearing, right? Am I right? I mean, he's just so likable. And that makes him very effective at work also. People want to follow him. He's a leader. People follow him in the office. People follow him on the golf course. People follow him on the whatever sport field there is. People just follow Chris. He's just very magnetic. I find that fascinating. I don't know what you did, Jim, but he's compassionate. He helps and respects all people. He cares about people. He hates to see people hurting. He's integrity-driven. He does the right thing. Chris knows that getting the results isn't enough. How you get the results matters just as much. And that's how he lives his life at work. He's witty. He can take a tense room or a tense situation at work and just sort of throw a little witty jab in there and just kind of settle things out so that you can break through it and get an agreement. He's innovative. We're going to see some of that today. He creates ideas like nobody I've seen. He riffs off other people's ideas. He moved riffs, R-I-F-F, not rip. He pivots. He finds ways. He finds a way to get it done. And you think about all of these things that this particular set of skills that he has, when you put all of them together, he gets results. That's what he's done for 35 years. He's been doing that. He's been doing it for the warfighter and for our nation. I'm going to try to do a little justice to some of that today for his family. He's my Lam Neeson. And we're going to talk about a little bit of what he's done today, not all of it. I mean, it's going to be tough to cover 35 years. But Chris will also be the very first person to tell you that it's not possible without his family. And so I want to spend a few minutes talking about that family. And I want to start with Dr. Jim and Mary Ashton Athearn at the end of the row, who I learned their names very, very early into my relationship with Chris. Can I call you mom and dad today? Your story is like a song, you know, and I wish I could sing. I probably need some help from the kids here, but Dad was the son of a Newport News shipbuilder. Mom was a preacher's kid. That's how you guys started. Dad, you haven't lost a step when you were up here. He was a Methodist preacher for 42 years. That certainly came out today. And so Chris, growing up, moved around because that's what you do. I don't know how many callings you had, but you moved around. I think mostly in Virginia, but they did move around. And I don't think they had TMO helping them pack up their stuff. And so that was the upbringing that Chris had. And you know, the compassion, those attributes that I talk about, a lot of that came from his parents. That's where he got that. That's where he got to start. Congratulations. You raised a good one. And we all get to benefit from it. Then there's Cheryl. I don't know what to say about you. You know, normally they say opposites attract, but you guys are so alike to me. Your personalities, you're both so extroverted. I don't know how you get to sleep at night. I mean, they met at Shepherd. Chris was there at Shepherd going through aircraft maintenance school, which I'll talk a little bit about later how he got there. And Cheryl was an aerospace physiologist teaching at the PA school there, and so they were working at the same base, and they started I guess they were attending a Bible study together, and So you met her in January of 94. So Chris met Cheryl in January 94 as part of this Bible study. They didn't start dating until April 1st. And so it took a little while. Now, you had a clock ticking because at the end of May, he was shipping out because the school was over. So we had a very, very short time, to make this happen. And so, now I'll tell you, Cheryl, I don't know if this is true, but he said you started flirting with him. No? That's seriously what he said. He went on to say, Mom and Dad, this is going to get uncomfortable. Okay? But here's what he said, that we both learned to water ski there, so she saw me in a swimsuit a lot. And so she started flirting with him first. So Chris loves sports. Everyone knows that, right? So he's got a date. He asks her out on a date, that first date. He's got a big plan, dinner and a movie. He's going to take her to a nice restaurant. But he's got a volleyball game that day. And you know Chris. And the volleyball game goes a little long. So does he stop playing volleyball and go to the date? No, he has to finish the game. And so he's late. He's basically late to his first date with his bride. And so because he's running out of, because they're late and they really want to go see this great movie called The Paper. Has anybody ever heard of that? No. Apparently it's a terrible movie, so we'll just, but really wanted to see it, and so he took her, of all places, he took her to Wendy's. And he ordered what he usually orders, which is a single with cheese, fries, and a Frosty. And then he starts dipping his fries in his Frosty. And that probably grossed you out. I have checked around. Apparently that is a thing. So Major Karen back there, she apparently does that too. So you are not alone in that. It sounds kind of gross to me, but that's what he did. And so they got past that first date, had a second date. They did some line dancing, went to a place called the Cheyenne Cattle Company where Chris is a dancer. That's one of his many talents. But he That's good. Oh my gosh. So eventually, I guess they did this a lot, and he'd been dancing in his Sperry topsiders, and once he committed to buying the boots, then he kind of knew that he was in, because he hates cowboys. Well, I don't know if that, I mean, the cowboy style. You don't hate cowboys, but.
I actually hate the Cowboys.
Okay. All right. He does. He likes the, I don't know what they're called now, but whatever. So the Commanders, I think. So for the next 2 months, they spent as much time together as they could before he had to ship off to Dover. I asked Chris, when did you know? 2 days. 2 days. That's pretty special, man. 2 days he knew she was the one. Of course, I had to think about that with my own relationship. And I had to ask Major Karen. So I've been polling, like, this seems really fast to me. 2 days? And then Chris shipped off to Dover, and now they're having a long-distance relationship and, trying to keep that going. And so how do you make that work? Well, I guess one thing is that 5 months after that first date, you propose, and that's what he did. He proposed at the National Harbor in Baltimore, and what did you say?
Yes.
Yeah, like immediately, or was it a pause?
It was a longer pause than that. Actually.
Was it really? And then in May, they were engaged on Labor Day in 1994, and they were married in May of 95. So by my count, that is literally 13 months from the first date. Is that right? No, 15 months. Yeah, really, really fast. And so, Mom and Dad, did you instruct him on slowing down at all? No? You knew it was right? You trusted your son. Oh boy, I didn't get that from my mother, but okay. Sorry, that didn't sound right, did it? All right, it's gonna take all day if we don't speed this up a little bit. So Parker, you're 23, huh? And you were born at Wright-Patterson. And you went to Rocky Bayou Christian School here in Niceville. He was the valedictorian of Rocky Bayou, and he went to Clemson, and he graduated in December. Now he's working at, he has a degree in bioengineering, and he works in Georgia as a production engineer at a company, I'll probably mispronounce it, Takeda? Yeah, and so they make life-saving medicine from plasma, so basically medical devices. There's one medical device they do not make, and that's a razor for that mustache. I am not even going to tell you what your mother said about that last night to me.
She told me she likes it on the phone, so.
So, like his dad, sports, a bunch of them. You saw him playing the drums up there, so that's just one of 3 instruments that he plays. And he does have really gorgeous hair. I mean,
Got the
Larry, am I right about the hair? Oh, yeah. He's also the tallest member. Why did you have to feel the need to tell me that? He is, I guess. I noticed I sized him up last night. I'm like, yeah, he's like my height. And then we have Maddie.
Credit where credit's due, that's all.
Maddie, 21, born at Fort Belvoir when you were in F-22, Pam, Chris. No less high-achieving or talented, and we saw some of that talent today. A 3rd in her class at Rocky Bayou. She's now attending Samford University in Birmingham studying musical theater. I think you have like 3 sports you did in high school. They all played basketball, by the way. The basketball and running is the one common element across the 3 of them. But all of them looked like they did between 3 and 5 sports in high school, and also music. And so you played an instrument as well, and you sing. And he called you his most daring child. Yes. I noticed that last night. Major Karen, did you notice? She's got spirit. I noticed she was controlling that room, and she wasn't taking gum from anyone last night. And that was coming out pretty well. Here's the quote from Quiz. She yields to no one and loves everyone lavishly. As Chris mentioned, she's leaving money to study abroad. Sorry about that reference. I didn't even think about that.
She's been brief.
Lori was worried that I wasn't going to be. Where's Lori? You were worried I wasn't going to. Last night, like, you got a lot of jokes. I'm like, I don't have any jokes.
Great job.
This is usually how it works. I'm funny, and I do not intend it to be funny. Sydney, 18. Born in at Bethesda Naval Hospital when Chris was a squadron commander for DCMA. Youngest child. She's a senior at Rocky, same school. Also at the top of her class. Thriving in the wake of her siblings, which is a very nice boat reference that you used, I noticed. She also plays a lot of sports and sings. Went to state as a freshman in cross country, and then decided to, do other things, and now she's running track again. So she also sings, as I mentioned, in school musicals. And you're going to go to Wheaton College, huh? You know it's cold there, right? Unfortunately. Well, later on, I'd like to know why you chose Wheaton. Although Major Karen definitely approved of it. So I don't know anything about it, but she approved. Basketball again. What's interesting about Chris is that all 3 of his children, he went back to work like immediately. He didn't take leave. So, and when you see his jobs, you're going to understand that. We've been putting him through a number of, I would say, challenging jobs over 35 years. So there's not been any time. But he's always there when he needs to be there for the big events. And Stephen, where's Stephen? Brother Stephen is the older brother, and Larry, brother Larry is the middle. Stephen, you kept your hair, as did Chris. But you guys, all 3 of you, are definitely brothers. I mean, it's uncanny when you look at the 3 of you side by side. Stephen works for Boeing, and Larry is a software programmer in Northern Virginia. And we went through the kids earlier, so I won't go through Larry's kids again. But Chris described you. Want to know how he described you two? Were you guys good brothers? That's probably about right. They toughened me up in my younger years. You could just see this. But I've always been supportive during my career. And Cheryl's father, Colonel Cleve Parker, passed way too early. He was an Air Force vet. Cheryl's twin brother and sister, Lori, where's Bill? There's Bill. I hear a lot about you too. Well, Lori, you and I used to run a lot together, but Bill, I've heard so much about you. Your sister really loves you. Both of them 30-year colonels, 30-year careers. And then Cousin Sandy, is Cousin Sandy here? I met her last night. Hey, there you are. Also a retired Air Force Lieutenant Colonel. So there's a long blue line on Cheryl's side of the family there. And then Barbara, where's my other mom? Right there, Barbara. You and I have met a couple times. How are you doing? So Barbara Parker, quintessential colonel's wife, mother of 5. She was a nurse in Buffalo, New York, and really set Cheryl up. The Cheryl that we know, I think, really started from Barbara. And it's interesting that Cheryl and Chris are the youngest from their families. So Chris, speaking of Chris, he was born in Richmond, Virginia. But he really grew up in Northern Virginia because that's where Dad's callings were. And so what's interesting is Chris went to 2 high schools in Northern Virginia. The first one was Washington Lee High School in Arlington. He was a freshman there and he wrestled. And he had a very famous alum there with him, Sandra Bullock. You had like a crush on her, didn't you? You mentioned her a couple times.
Retroactively.
Retroactive. So she used to cheer for him by name when he wrestled. She didn't cheer very long because he got pinned a lot. But he only weighed 92 pounds and he was wrestling in a 98-pound weight class. So and every pound in wrestling really does matter. So if you can imagine that. But he got stronger and stronger and stronger and better and better and better at wrestling. And then he transferred, the family moved and he transferred to George C. Marshall High School, which of course is the famous high school in the movie Remember the Titans. And so that's where Chris hails from, is there. And he ended up going to the Air Force Academy. And what really got him interested in that was folks at the church had mentioned, you know, they had noticed, this is to me just fascinating, that Chris had a leadership, they noticed the leadership ability in him at a very, very young age. And he had a couple folks pull him aside and said, you know, you really should consider a service academy. And so he looked at both the Naval Academy and USAFA. Did not want to go to the Army because, of course, you know.
Then you have to be in the Army.
Yeah, well, and there's the whole Stripes movie and all that. So, he entered into USAFA, and that's where he got to start. Chris has got a lot of. Where's his house? His house in here? Where are you? So how many other USAFA classmates are here? A couple? Okay. I talked to House and I had dinner last night together at the house. And, you know, he describes you, you're pretty much the same as you were then. He said you're a little more mature, but that same personality is the Chris that we know. And one of those personality traits is this guy's got a lot of hobbies. Did you know that? So I asked him to fill out this worksheet like I often do for folks, and I usually get 2 or 3 hobbies. Chris listed 12. I don't know that I even need to go through them, but they're quite lengthy. Apparently, you've now picked up pickleball. So we'll save time. We'll not list them, but I'm sure you know what they are. I've already had folks talk about his volleyball prowess. Yes, that's on the list. You guys, you know, crushed, I guess, the base league in softball. That's also on the list. Here I am going through the list. I said I wouldn't. I said, Chris, I've never gotten 12 things on a list. That's too many. He said, well, that's the truncated list. And if you know Chris, that's pretty true. So that's Chris Athearn. That's the Chris Athearn that grew up, that you raised. And that's the Chris Athearn, frankly, that we all still know. And he's had a good long run. He's, you know, really 39 years in uniform, but 35 as a commissioned officer. And he started pretty quick and high. He started as a systems engineer, human factors engineer for the Ballistic Missile Organization, working on the Peacekeeper Rail Garrison program. And anybody remember that? So think about something that's 2.5 times the weight of a Minuteman III, something that we could put multiple warheads on, something that's pretty scary. He worked on that, and if that wasn't enough, he worked on the program to actually put that on a rail car and move it around the country. This is during the Cold War, so y'all remember the Cold War. That's where he got to start, and we ended up canceling the program. Do you know why we canceled it? Because we won the Cold War. We didn't need that weapon anymore. And that's what Chris, and if you go to Wright-Patterson, you can see that rail car there today. It's still there. And Chris did that for about 4 years. And so, impact number 1 right there. We won the Cold War with Chris's help. So he got a hot start right away. And then after that, he decided to broaden himself a little bit by going into aircraft maintenance. And so we sent him to Shepherd, which is where they met. And he went through aircraft maintenance school, which is something that is a very selective thing. So we'll take a subset of the acquisition officers and send them there. Hopefully they want to come back, and he did. And so that's what he did. He went there, and he followed that with an assignment at Dover, where he worked on C-5s. And the C-5 is a massive airplane. Hopefully everybody's seen a C-5 before. It's got an incredible ability to move a lot of cargo, a lot of outsized cargo, just a lot of weight around the world. And so he did that. And it was he only did it for a year, and I'm going to go into why in a second. But during that time, while he was doing that, we did the Operation Uphold Democracy with Haiti. You all remember that, where we were trying to restore democracy in that country. And we were successful. And so the C-5s were just running the rails, just moving stuff back and forth. And that was Chris's guys. Those were Chris's airplanes doing that. Another huge impact. Upholding democracy for our nation and making sure that it didn't get squelched in one location. So he only spent a year doing that. And then he said, my bride is still in Texas, and here I am at Dover. How can we get together? What about this Air Force intern program? If I apply for that, then I can go to DC, she can go to Andrews, and we can be together. And so that's what he did. That's not why I applied for that program, by the way. But they were newlyweds, and he really wanted to get linked back up with his new wife. And that's when I met Chris. It was in 1995. We were in Air Force interns together. And I have way too many stories, but I do got to tell a couple here. There was 4 of us. We carpooled together to the Pentagon. It was Chris and I, Manson Morris, who probably people don't know, and Lenny Rishu. Some of you may know Lenny, the 4 of us. And there was 4 or 5 carpools. There were like 48 interns. There was another carpool that involved Jim Slife and some other people, Vice Chief Jim Slife. And so very select group of individuals. Stephen Whiting was part of the Jim Slife carpool. And so we were doing that. We were running hard, solving all the world's problems, 45 minutes twice a day, driving in and driving home. And so we each worked in different locations in the Pentagon, and then we went to school at George Washington at night, spent a lot of time studying together. We started a shoe company. Did you know that? Egbert Shoes. And so what do you do? And so I remember going over to the house. You guys were newlyweds. Honestly, I don't think it clicked on me very well because they had only been married, together living together for a month or two. And we would go to their house and hang out a lot. And I'm like, that probably wasn't the wisest thing to do. And Chris is trying to hey, can we finish and get you guys out of here? Cheryl, it was partly your fault though. You used to make brownies a lot. And so just the welcoming feeling in that house, we would congregate there and we would run the shoe company, which was really a simulation. I won't go through all the details, but our business model was we wanted to sell a lot of shoes. We had to come up with a strategy, affordable mass. We wanted to sell a lot of shoes. And so we came up with a strategy to do that. And we had to change it a little bit because we were sort of striking out. But by the time the game was over, I don't remember who actually won, but we were right near the top. And so Egbert Shoes. I don't even remember whose idea that was for the name, but that's what we did. So we graduated together from George Washington, spent 2 years at the intern program, and then we went to Wright-Patterson together. And so Chris was working at the engine program office there at Wright-Patterson. There's a program we have called SIP, Component Improvement Program. Basically, our fighter, especially if you think about an F-16, it's only got how many engines? It's got one engine. Kind of needs to work like all the time. And so we have Chris was working on this program called Engine SIP to make sure that we could make improvements to engines to keep the pilots in the air. And frankly, we lose too many pilots each year in that airplane. And so that's a constant effort that we do there. And Chris worked on that pretty hard. So when I met Chris, we were already married 12 years. So think about that. I had been married, Dee Dee and I were married 12 years, had 4 children already when we met Chris and Cheryl. And we were just smitten with them. They were just the coolest people we had ever met. And so during that time, when you were working at the engine program office, we would, again, too many stories. Dee Dee's going to look at me because I'm telling too many stories. But so imagine going to a Columbus Clippers baseball game. And you're just having a good time there, right? But these two extroverts can't help themselves. So between innings, they're going out in the aisle right in front, and they're like swing dancing. Like if they're playing music between innings, they're out there swing dancing. He's like flipping her around and twirling her behind his back. I mean,
it was big back then.
Oh my gosh. I'm like, this is something else. And Dee Dee and I are like, oh man, please don't ask us to come up there with you. Chris and I ran a lot. He's really the one that got me into running. We ran a lot. There's Mike back there. Mike was part of the running crew. Cheryl was part of the running crew. We ran a whole lot, a lot. And so I ran my first marathon with Chris. That's a whole other story we can talk about later because I'll get behind. But he ran with Dee Dee and I on Dee Dee's first marathon. That's how he is. Even when they canceled the marathon that she had signed up for, we still ran it. Chris figured out the course, and we ran it. You remember that?
The grassroots marathon, yes.
The grassroots marathon. When we went to ACSC to go house hunting, Chris and Cheryl watched our children for a week. I think about that now, and I'm like, what were we thinking? I'm not sure he even knew how to take care of kids. We left 4 children with Chris and Cheryl and went to Montgomery and did house hunting. Dee Dee left instructions, very detailed instructions about how to take care of these kids. We get back. Chris and Cheryl say, hey, we were like reading through the checklist to make sure we did everything right about an hour before you got home, and it wasn't until then we realized there was more than page 1.
It's like 6 or 7 pages.
4 pages. Front and back. Dee Dee's she's very particular about certain things. And then we went up to the Aeronautical Systems Center headquarters together, and we worked. Chris was working for the vice commander, and I was in what they call the DAC peg, essentially the CAG back then. And we ran more and more, and Ducky joined our crew, and so we got really, really close through that period. Chris ended up working for a year in the PEG as well, and then Chris went to ICAF, Air Command and Staff College. After Air Command and Staff College, Chris went to the Pentagon, which is something that we often do. We'll send folks after Air Command and Staff College to the Pentagon, and we linked up again. So you can see our career field, our careers path, cross path quite a bit. And then in 2003, we decided to bring Chris into the F-22 vault. Where's Whammo? There he is. You remember that? So you just got to describe this vault. The vault is, it's a small building, small room. There's 6 people in there. There's 4 blue suit majors. One of them's a lieutenant colonel. So 3 majors, lieutenant colonel, 4 what called PEMs. A PEM's job is to make sure the building, the Air Force, the other services, OSD, the media, and the Hill understand why we need this program. And at that point, we were ending development, trying to end development, get into production, start sustaining, all at the same time. Program had about $5 billion a year in it at that point. So they put 6 of us in there. Jen Santos was in there. It was like the dream team in there. And we kept the vault door on there so the other PEMs wouldn't try to come in and steal the money. No, not really, but it was very classified, so we can't even really talk about a lot of it. But I do want to talk about one quick story, and that is this. You know what that is? That's Alf. How many know where that name came from? Just a few. Well, you're going to learn today, because it's probably not. Now, by the way, I asked Dee Dee, should I put the shirt on or not? She's like,
Definitely.
no, leave it off. I put it on. Put it right there. So there's Alf. Chris comes in. There's another PEM in there. We have one of the PEMs is a rated PEM, an F-15 pilot. And if you know anything about fighter pilots, we make them one way. And trying to think, do we have any in here? There's one. I don't know how to describe it. I'll say confident. Figured it out finally there. We make him one way, and that's confident. And Flash Richardson was extremely confident. And we took him to the Hill with us because we would explain the programmatics, and Flash would do all the whatever they, Here's, what, I mean, it's true. He would do some of that. And so he would explain why we needed the aircraft. Chris would explain, the programmatics and what we were doing with all the money that we were getting. Chris had been in there first day. One of the very first things that's happened is everyone's got to have a call sign. I got my call sign, which I completely dismissed after I left that job. Chris makes a classic mistake. What's the first rule of call signs? Don't try to name yourself. And so Chris and Flash is like, and Chris is like, well, you have a cool call sign. I want a cool call sign. And so that went back and forth for a couple of days, and I'm like, oh my gosh, how's this going to end? And so finally we said, okay, peace. You guys knock it off and go to your corners. And then you don't know this, but we spent the rest of that week doing email between the other 5 of the 6, talking about what we should call him. I won't go through all the names. But we came up with one that really works well, and it's ALF. Alpha male. It stands for alpha male. And so, because we basically had these 2 hard chargers kind of going at it a little bit. And of course, after that, they became great friends. And so that's how he got Alf. Again, I don't really call him that. I just go by Chris because that's how I know him. But that time in the F-22 vault, he spent 2 years in there. And I mentioned all the things the program was going through were really a consequential time. In fact, he would probably say that he learned maybe the most in his career just during that time frame. It was a very stressful time. I remember it well, and not all of it was pleasant. But we have an F-22 to show for it. I wish we had more of them. That's a whole other story, which I would love to tell, but we'll do that later. Because Chris knows it. Chris knows why we only have 187 of them instead of 277. And that's where we are today. So after that, we sent him. He was selected for Squadron Command, and the family moved to Baltimore. He was a Squadron commander for DCMA. And if you've been to Northrop Grumman in Baltimore, there's a lot of more stuff I can't talk. Unfortunately, a lot of the stuff I can't really go into a lot of detail. We make, I'll just say, very special radars there, fire control radars for fighters, and they do special things, really special things. And so he was working those programs up there, for our frontline fighters. And so that's what he did up there for 3 years. And so during that time, he also deployed to Iraq. You remember the surge, the 2007 surge, where we were, I think, with 20 or 30,000 folks. We surged in there to make sure that democracy was taking hold there, and kind of finish the job, and it was successful. And so that surge was very criticized at the time, but I think most folks would look back on it and say it was extremely successful. Chris went in there and was probably throwing out money left and right to make sure that, legally of course, to make sure that our troops were taken care of with all the stuff that they needed. He had a couple near-death, a couple close calls there, and so I think that will heighten your patriotism really quickly and the value of our country. So he did that till he was the commander for 3 years there, and 6 months of it was deployed. Then we sent him to ICAF. I still call it that because that's what it was called back then. Mom and Dad, that's a very selective school. We'll send the top colonels or lieutenant colonels to that school there in D.C. And that's what we did. We went there. We sent Chris there. His best memory. What do you think his best memory from ICAF is? Jim Thorpe winning the President's Cup. So I guess not Jim, but winning the President's Cup, meaning they beat National War College, which is also there. He did nearly every sport that he could do, basically. So he ran, he did softball, he did volleyball, he did golf, bowling, tennis, and soccer. All the sports. I'm not sure what you didn't do, but you did most of them. I only did one. I did running when I went through there because I'm not athletic. But he did them all. From there, we sent him over to AQI, the Information Dominance Directorate inside the Air Staff, and he worked on more programs that he's not worked on: AWACS, Joint STARS, 3-dealer, and just a bunch of other command and control and ISR assets. And so to fill out his portfolio. By this time, he made 06, and we sent him to DCMA Twin Cities in Minnesota for what we call it's basically like a group command level job. Senior material leader is what we call it. So he went off and did that. Actually, that was a command, wasn't it? That was a classic group command position. And I think Chris traveled. I think you were responsible for all the. So this isn't just Air Force. This is all services. So about 7 states worth of DoD work is what was in his portfolio. And so a lot of Army vehicles. And a lot of electronic equipment was in his portfolio. And so he actually did that for, was it 3.5 years? Quite a long time. And then we picked him to come here. You've been here 10 years. Do you know that? So he got here in 2014. We picked him to be the senior material leader for the Long Range Systems Division, which includes the JASSM missile, the LRASM missile, that's hard for me to say, and then the MAL-J jammer, decoy jammer, and that's what he was doing. And he did that job for about 4 years. And so the JASSM missile, I don't know how much you've told your parents about or your kids, but it's a very special missile. It's got a long range. I'll just say it's got a long range. It's really hard to detect it, so it's a stealthy missile, and it's critical to attacking targets in certain places. And so that program is very successful. And so, in fact, under Chris's watch, we actually employed it. And it went 19 for 19, hitting Syrian chemical depots. Y'all probably remember that. And so that weapon is in high demand by multiple services. And so much so that we are now thinking about how can we strap it into a C-17 and drop them out the back. So it's a real winner. Chris led that team for 4 years. The LRASM is a ship killer, similar missile, but for ships. Chris led that team for 4 years. We don't have enough of them. I wish we were buying more of them. And Chris led that team for 4 years. From there, Chris applied for a program called the Senior Military Acquisition Advisor. So Chris's boss is actually not you. You think he is, or you think he's not. You're not his boss. I am not his boss. Honorable Hunter is his boss. So his boss is a political appointee that works in the Pentagon. That's who his boss is. Chris is here to help Honorable Hunter with the weapons, not just primarily the weapons programs, which is about a $90 billion portfolio, but really, frankly, anything that Honorable Hunter wants Chris to work on. And Chris has done it. Chris has worked on all kinds of stuff. So during the during the pandemic, Chris worked a lot of stuff for the Air Force knows how to do acquisition work, guys. And so the Department of Health and Human Services actually asked the Air Force for help. And we sent them Chris. And so Chris help them with a lot of their acquisition. So remember the whole N95 mask, our nation didn't have the capacity to build those. Ventilators, all those things, pharmaceuticals, all of those things that we needed. DHHS was on their keister and they needed help, and Chris did that work. So that's really, I would say, non-defense work. And so he also did pandemic work for defense. And so the Defense Production Act, Title III, which is a special provision in Congress, which allows us to make sure that a lot of our suppliers stay healthy during the pandemic. Chris worked all of that stuff. So space launch, not even an Air Force thing. So space launch, aircraft engines, microelectronics, making sure that those fragile industries could stay up during the pandemic when a lot of folks, frankly, were not even at work. Probably my favorite, which I don't know if you realize it or not, is there's a program called JATM, which is a very special air-to-air missile, also extremely classified. Another program that was on its keister, and Chris, Honorable Hunter asked Chris to dive in there and and be part of an independent review team to figure out how to write that thing. You did it. We're in production now, and so the JATM missile is doing better. Same thing with Arrow. Chris led an alert on Arrow. The one that I think he'll probably talk about a little bit, so I won't steal too much of it, is this thing called Franklin. You heard of Franklin? And so Franklin, I got to tell you, Chris, Franklin reminds me of Egbert shoes. It does, and that's because the Egbert Shoe Company was trying to be the Zappos of shoe companies, trying to affordable quality, just enough quality, not too much, affordable quality shoes for the masses, and that really describes what he's been working on most recently, the Franklin missile. And so think about an affordable missile, and right now that's really what our nation needs probably more than anything, Dr. Grayson, is affordable mass. And so he's been working on that for the Secretary and the Chief. How do we get affordable mass? And so think about a modular missile that can be built using special additive or advanced manufacturing techniques, maybe built by partners, maybe built by more than one partner, exportable, all the things that you would look in a missile, but also a quality missile. So, and that's what he's been working on. And to me, Franklin is the Egbert of missiles.
Full circle.
Kind of, so. Okay, let me wrap this up. I want to get Chris up here. I did not do justice to his career. I know that. He's awesome. His ability to lead teams is unparalleled. Those special skills that I mentioned, he really puts them to use really, really well. And I know that Mom and Dad, maybe Steve and Larry also helped with those special skills. But 39 years wearing the uniform, 20 assignments, 8 PCSs. You've impacted every Air Force Corps function. I think if I look back at your record, probably almost every MAGCOM that we have. He's delivered kit for every MAGCOM that we have. 3 joint assignments, 3 command postings. Hundreds of close friends and family. Three kids. 29 years of marriage. 1 wife. Yeah. Chris and Cheryl, on behalf of a grateful nation, thank you for your 35 years of strong and faithful service. You've managed to deliver kit to our precious warfighters by leading with the very values our nation represents. Dee Dee and I wish you only the best Thank you for 29 years of unconditional friendship. You will always be a part of our family. There's only two things I have left to do. Chris has done such an amazing job. This is the senior middle assistant to Honorable Hunter, and his work has been recognized by the Secretary of the Air Force. The Secretary of the Air Force, in this letter that I'm holding right here, which is dated on the 19th of April, is a letter from Secretary Kendall to the Secretary of Defense, nominating you, Christopher Athearn, to the grade of Brigadier General. It has two more stops before we get it over the line. The last stop is the President of the United States. Then we're going to have another ceremony. My final act of business is to present Chris with his final decoration, which is the Legion of Merit. Chris, would you join me up here?
Absolutely.
At this time, Colonel Athearn will receive the Legion of Merit. Please stand for the presentation of the award.
Publish the order.
Attention orders. Colonel Christopher Athearn distinguished himself by exceptionally meritorious conduct in the performance of outstanding services to the United States while assigned as the Senior Military Acquisition Advisor to the Assistant Secretary of the Air Force for Acquisition, Technology, and Logistics, Eglin Air Force Base, Florida, from 19 July 2018 to 31 May 2024. Colonel Athearn made lasting contributions in advising the Service Acquisition Executive, Program Executive Offices, and Senior Material Leaders for Air Force programs with a special emphasis on the $92 billion weapons portfolio. He developed 39 concrete recommendations supporting the rebaselining of the Joint Advanced Tactical Missile, a critical operational imperative weapon that injected realism into the schedule and enabled delivery of the next generation of munitions. His efforts charted a credible path to major milestone decisions, over 15 successful test flights, and a successful transition to production. During his tenure, Colonel Athearn chaired the review of the Air-Launched Rapid Response Weapon Program, identifying risks in the test program. All recommendations were adopted, which primed the historic test of the United States' first ever air-launched hypersonic weapons test. In response to the COVID pandemic, he identified $535 million in Air Force unique requirements for the Air Force 2021 Defense Industrial Base Unfunded Priorities List report to Congress to keep the doors open for critical manufacturing capabilities. Colonel Athearn brilliantly led and directed the SECAF-directed Weapons Capacity Task Force for the Weapons Cross-Cutting Operational Enabler effort. He adapted the concept of modular weapons to an approach for globally distributed production, leveraging advanced manufacturing methods and novel business arrangements to address the warfighter's demand for rapidly replenishable, respectable, and affordable long-range strike weapons. The singularly distinctive accomplishments of Colonel Athearn culminate a long and distinguished career in the service of his country and reflects great credit upon himself and the United States Air Force. General Richardson will now retire Colonel Athearn.
Publish the order.
Department of the Air Force, Washington, D.C., Special Order Number AL-000853 to Colonel Christopher B. Athearn, Eglin Air Force Base, Florida, effective 31 May 2024. You are relieved from active duty, organization, and station of assignment, retired effective 1 June 2024, after 35 years of faithful and honorable duty per Air Force Instruction 36-3203 in the grade of Colonel by order of the Secretary of the Air Force.
Just like that. What's up, Bill?
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. I will now read the Certificate of Retirement from the Air Force Chief of Staff, the Armed Forces of the United States of America. To all who shall see these presents, greetings. This is to certify that Christopher B. Athearn, having served faithfully and honorably, is retired from the United States Air Force on the first day of June 2024. Signed, General David W. Alvin, Chief of Staff. I will now read the Certificate of Appreciation from the President of the United States. Certificate of Appreciation for service in the Armed Forces of the United States of America, Colonel Christopher B. Athearn. I extend my personal gratitude and the sincere appreciation of a grateful nation to you for your patriotic service to our country. Your bravery and dedication in our armed forces helped protect your fellow Americans during a critical moment in our history and contributed to a world of greater security and growing prosperity. Your devotion to duty, honor, and country, in keeping with the long traditions of the finest military in the world, embodied the American ideal of selfless service. Our nation owes you an incredible debt. Your commitment and the example you set will inspire future generations to serve with pride and to keep our country secure. You represent the best of our nation, and I join our fellow Americans in saluting your honorable service. I wish you happiness and success in your next chapter. Signed, Joseph R. Biden, Commander-in-Chief. Colonel Athearn also received certificates of appreciation from former Presidents William J. Clinton and George W. Bush, Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force Number 19, Joanne S. Bass, and he also received a certificate and a flag that was flown over the Pentagon on 5 March 2024 in honor of his retirement with 35 years of service. I now invite Cheryl to come forward for the Air Force Retirement Pin presentation. Cheryl, please present your spouse with the Air Force Retirement Pin.
Right. I think it actually, is it blind? You think? Really? No, I don't know.
This pin is to be worn on your uniform with pride. It signifies to everyone that the wearer of this pin has served their country well and honorably. Thank you, Cheryl. Now I would like to read the Spouse Certificate of Appreciation from the United States Air Force. In grateful appreciation, the United States Air Force presents this certificate of recognition to Mrs. Cheryl Athearn for the commitment and numerous contributions that made positive impacts to the nation's defense. Thank you for the support which gave strength and purpose to your spouse's service. Signed, General David W. Alvin, Chief of Staff.
Wait, we done with her? I think we're done with her. Okay.
The Hurlburt Field Honor Guard will now perform a flag folding ceremony in honor of Colonel Athearn. For more than 200 years, the American flag has been the symbol of our nation's unity, as well as a source of pride and inspiration for millions of citizens. Born on June 14, 1777, the Second Continental Congress determined that the flag of the United States be 13 stripes, alternating between 7 red and 6 white, and that the Union be 13 stars, white in a blue field representing a new constellation. Between 1777 and 1960, the shape and design of the flag evolved into the flag presented before you today. The 13 horizontal stripes represent the original 13 colonies, while the stars represent the 50 states of the Union. The colors of the flag are symbolic as well. Red symbolizes hardiness and valor, white signifies purity and innocence, and blue represents vigilance, perseverance, and justice. Traditionally a symbol of liberty, the American flag has carried the message of freedom and inspired Americans both at home and abroad. In 1814, Francis Scott Key was so moved at seeing the stars and stripes waving after the British shelling of Baltimore's Fort McHenry that he wrote the words of the Star-Spangled Banner. In 1892, the flag inspired Francis Bellamy to write the Pledge of Allegiance, our most famous flag salute and patriotic oath. In July 1969, the American flag was flown in space when Neil Armstrong planted it on the surface of the moon. Today, our flag flies on constellations of the Air Force satellites that circle our globe and on the fin flash of our aircraft in harm's way in every corner of the world. Indeed, it flies in the heart of every airman who served our great nation. The sun never sets on our U.S. Air Force, nor in the flag we so proudly cherish. Since 1776, no generation of Americans has been spared the responsibility of defending freedom. Today's airmen remain committed to preserving the freedom that others won for us, for generations to come. By displaying the flag and giving it a distinctive fold, we show respect to the flag and express our gratitude to those individuals who fought and continue to fight for freedom, at home and abroad. Since the dawn of the 20th century, airmen have proudly flown the flag in every major conflict on land and skies around the world. It is their responsibility, our responsibility, to continue to protect and preserve the rights, privileges, and freedoms that we as Americans enjoy today. The United States flag represents who we are. It stands for the freedom we all share and the pride and patriotism we feel for our country. We cherish its legacy as a beacon of hope to one and all. Long may it wave. And now, I present to you Colonel Christopher B. Athearn, United States Air Force, retired.
How much time we got? Can I get a bottle of water?
All right, we're going to get through this. I'm going to think Liam Neeson the whole time. I'm thinking, get those special skills going. First of all, thanks, Veda. Did you know that Veda is a celebrity? Lieutenant Reed. So first there was Sandra Bullock, and now to bookend my career, the celebrity Air Force recruiting commercial star, Lieutenant Veda Reed. Since her first retirement, she killed it. I mean, she did. Other thank yous. General Richardson, you told me once I was retired, it's okay to call you Duke again. So I knew you before you were a general. Poor guy got stuck in a carpool with me and two other guys. It's like, that's only because we lived together. I mean, in the same area. And that meant we had to be in the same study group, which meant we came up with Egbert shoes. But like you said, we went to Wright Pat, and our careers, you know, it's obvious. We were in the same year group. And so why is he a 4-star general? And I just was like a colonel forever. It starts way back then. This is the cool thing. He said I was an exec, right? So as an exec, you get to see special files and data, right? Information. And so Will Evans, who's in the crowd tonight, I see him right now, he's the exec that I replaced for the 1-star there. And they ran the promotion boards from captain to major. And Will's getting nervous now because he realizes he left the file there from the promotion board. Okay, you don't even know this. So back then, you could be promoted to major 2 years early, 2 years below the zone. And we both came up for the same promotion board 2 years below the zone. Both got definitely promotes. Duke gets picked up, and I do not, which is okay. It's okay. But I go up there, and then I get the job where I get to open the file, and I see all the notes about the reading of the records and everything. And I found the one thing. I found the one thing that's the reason why Duke got promoted and I didn't. I've never told you this before. And everyone's getting really nervous because they're saying, Alf, why would you possibly reveal this right now? But there was just one thing, and it makes all the difference in the world. His record was way better than mine. That was it. And is that really all it takes? Come on. But I will tell one more good story, because you had a couple good stories on me there. You already told the spiral notebook thing with our parenting. Yeah, what were you thinking? But the marathon training, this is one I love to tell, because the ALF thing, the alpha male thing, absolutely spot on. But I inspire that same behavior in other people sometimes, and you were not a super highly competitive guy when we were running, but somehow it rubbed off on you. We would do these training runs out at Yellow Springs, these very long training runs. Pete's nodding, and he's like, we would put out water stations that, for ourselves to run like a 20-mile run. And my big thing at the end of a run, whether it's a race or a training run, I'm going to kick that end. I'm like, if anybody's near me, I'm going to finish first. It's a training run. Still do it. He knows it. We've been doing it every week for like months. We're on the way back. We're like less than a mile out. And we're together the whole way, matching the pace. And, Come on, we can do it. You know, very mutually supportive and everything like that, right? I look down, my shoelace is untied. And I say, Duke, wait a minute, my shoelace is untied. He's like, okay. I go to tie my shoe. He doesn't skip a beat, just goes. He's like, if I can get a little bit of a lead, maybe I can beat him in that last kick. Honestly, I don't remember if you did or not. I think you did. But I know that you were not stopping for me there. So, thank you for doing this. I know it is not a trivial thing to secure calendar time from a 4-star. It's non-trivial. But when I asked him, he said I would have been disappointed if you didn't. So it would have been like either way, you know. Yeah, but you talked about the F-22 days, and Whammo was here too. We were in the shop. We call it, you know, I don't know, we don't call it anything. We just the things we don't like to talk about. But it was like the ultimate, you know, you love that baby, that F-22, man. You get in there, it was the Chiefs' baby, and it was everything for us, right? And then you get the call. We got the call on the 23rd of December, and it was, yes, we need you over here for a budget drill. It'd be like God talking to Abraham and saying, you have to bring your son in, and we got to take care of this. So it's basically like, who's God in this scenario? I guess it'd be maybe Blaise Durrani, the godfather of all the money for the Air Force acquisition. And we're all Abraham. And F-22 is the GOAT, you know. But we had to cut $10 billion, 100 aircraft, and 3 years off the program in 45 minutes. And we figured out how to do that. And if we didn't do it, Blaise Durrani was going to court-martial us if we told anybody about it. But it was a great time, great time. Other folks here, General White, General Bartolome, General Genetempo, General Garrity, Dr. Grayson, all the, Glenn, I've known you for a long time on multiple venues here, so really appreciate you guys taking the time. I don't think you knew that you were taking this much time, but I'll try to speed it up. But there are a slew of other guests here that I cannot possibly name, with other tremendous histories of service of their own, both in and out of uniform. That is to say, there are many of you who are also old, like me. I'm just overwhelmed by the collection of family and friends here, folks from all the way back from my origins. And I know that there are also folks who are watching online who wanted to get the live stream. I really appreciate all the support from everyone. Everything you've already done to this point. Major Brassberg's the guy who's directing, producing, and the roadie for all of this that we set up for the AV and for the live stream. And he's doing the party afterwards, so he's doing a big help, absolutely. Thanks to everybody who helped put this thing together. I know it's a huge ordeal. It takes way more time than you thought it would when you volunteered or you were voluntold. But Lauren Daly stepped up and said, I want to do this. J.T. Smith, Redvine Solano, I know you're out there. Lieutenant Max Johnson. This was his first retirement he'd ever seen, and he was asked to be the proffer, and he did incredibly well. Captain Jeremy Smith, Lieutenant Tara Moore, Mark Williford, Steve Colangelo, Lieutenant Travis, PJ, my nephew-in-law, helped escort, and Gabe has been taking pictures for us, so he's been doing great. Thanks to everybody. I know I missed a few people, but let's give them all a hand. Thank you. Okay, family. All of you are here. There's no way I can talk about all of you, so I'm going to streamline and try not to lose it. I'll start with you, Mom and Dad. You nailed it, Duke. My mom and dad are definitely why I am who I am today. Mom, faithfulness, unconditional love. She loves to tell this story. Back before there were computers, I would write my papers for school, and I would wait to the last minute, just like I did writing these remarks last night. And she would wake up at like 5:30 in the morning and type my papers for me before she went to work so I could take it to school that day. Mom, I had to type these myself last night. What is up with that? And she's always been, certainly a strong supporter and the ever, constant worrier about everything for the whole family. Barbara, my other new mother, Cheryl's mom, always a monument of strength for this whole family. You carried 5 people through pretty significant events in life. Your helpmate left you too soon, but your resilience prevailed. You taught it to all your kids. It's getting so close. Sure gave it to my wife. Dad, you taught me forbearance. You taught me how to be with people when it was hard to be with people. How to live peaceably with all. You taught me about your pastoral laugh. Whew, I need that. You know what a pastoral laugh is? You have one, except it's a general's laugh. It's when someone says something that you think is probably supposed to be funny, and if you don't act like it's funny, then it's like an insult. So you just go, ah, ha, ha, ha. Like that. That's a pastoral laugh. Like that. And he taught me, any problem, you just got to figure it out. You guys, does that pop up? It's like, what's going on? It's this and this and this. Well, let's talk about that. Let's figure it out. And this is what I've been doing my entire career. It's just figuring it out. Problem solving. That's what we do in this job. And fix it. And he never lose sight of the big picture. He's a big picture guy too, and I think that's what I like to lean on. And if you're going to do something, do it right. That's what his dad told him. That's what he told us. That's what I try to tell my kids too. My brothers, they were my brothers, big brothers. They kept me in my place because I was the youngest and should not ever forget it. They inspired me, they pushed me like big brothers do. I still wanted to be like them, in spite of being, put in my place over and over. But I wanted to be like them. A lot of what I aspired to be for them and with them, like them, was they were athletes. Both played church league softball. They were stars of that team, even though they wore like Levi's in the outfield. They swore by wearing jeans. It was like you could do that slide catch and, they probably would still wear them today if they were playing softball. But I always wanted to be like them because they got to buy Levi's and they got to buy Converse tennis shoes. I had to get Tough Skins and Jeepers. It was terrible. Larry was a top athlete, went to the same school, actually was classmates with Sandra Bullock. She didn't cheer for him. She never cheered for him like she cheered for me. You know why? He played tennis. You don't cheer in tennis. So sometimes the youngest kind of catches up and overtakes, in some regards, the older brothers. So I always wanted to achieve a level of greatness just by watching them. My kids, Parker, Maddie, Sydney, if I go too much into this, I'll lose it. But kids are what give you another chance in life, right? It's kind of, you want to teach them from your mistakes. give them opportunities you never had. They turn into great young people in spite of the mistakes you still make as a parent, right? How does that happen? Better young people than you ever could have imagined they could be. And that's what my kids are. They're unique in their own right. They're mature in their walk with the Lord. It's incredible to watch. God's working in and through them. They're amazing and aggravating all at once. Always been supportive. When moves happened, tears were shed. But they never questioned or resented my service. The only time Maddie said, "When are you going to retire?" is because we kept telling them that we may not get a puppy until after we retired. She really wanted us to have a puppy. She's like, "Dad, when are you going to retire?" I don't know. But we ended up getting a puppy before I retired, so then I could keep working for a long time. I can't wait to see what the Lord's going to do for them. Here's the biggie. Here's the biggie. Can't do it? Nice try. Duke didn't bring this out. Cheryl was active duty when we met, and I was never going to marry an Air Force woman. That was like not the plan. It's too hard. The joint spouse thing is tough, we found out. But we figured it out. We got together in D.C. I went to write Pat 6 months later, after I lived with Pete and Lori for a while, and we learned how to run coax cable through the garage so we could watch football games while we set up the ping pong table. It was great. It was great. But then we got there and we started to realize aerospace physiology and acquisition weren't going to work too well together, and for getting stationed at the same place. So she decided to separate, but she wanted to stay in the reserves. And a medical issue came up. She was diagnosed with MS, and the Air Force said, they did a whole medical review board, and they said, "We can't keep you at that." Air Force lost big time on that bet, because she would have killed it. She never slowed down. She ran past everybody else. She would have done so much more for our country in uniform. One reason I served as long as I did is because she couldn't. She is not perfect. Some of you think she is. All right, she is an uber woman, okay, yes, but she is not perfect. The toothpaste tube? Oh my gosh, right from the start. She leaves the cap off every night. And I thought, we'll get over this when they came up with the flip cap. It's like, how much effort does it take to just flip the cap? It's so little. We just have 2 different toothpaste tubes. That's just how it has to happen. It's the same toothpaste, 2 different tubes. But other than that, you all know she's super amazing. I hit the lottery. The Lord just really blessed me, pairing us up together. She leaves my tools out. She leaves my tools out outside, and it's like I come home on her day off. She's been working in the yard all day, and she leaves my tools out. I was like, And then I realized she was working out in the yard all day on her day off. So I don't say anything about the tools being out. But we're a team. We've always said them from the beginning, and that is her reminder to me that we're a team. I spent the whole day working outside. It's now just do your part and put the tools away. I don't have to do that. All right, and I'm going to try to go fast and funny. A lot of people ask why I did keep serving as long as I did. People want to know, they want to know, why for the last 6 years did I say yes and keep going? Or maybe the last 10 years, I could have easily retired after leaving Twin Cities, retired colonel, full career, nothing wrong, nothing to be ashamed of. It would have been a good point to step off, but I would have still looked like, if I retired back then, I would look like that picture in the program still. People say, like, sir, do you want to get an updated photo for the ceremony? It's like, why the heck would I do that? You can tell that I used to look like that. That's still me. But listen, I love a good story, and maybe I wanted to help make my life a good story. I love underdogs. I love movies about defying the odds, overcoming adversity, sports teams, families, friends rallying behind a person or a cause, all human interactions, relationships that make a difference. They inspire, they motivate, they lift the human spirit far beyond anyone thought was ever possible. All this crying that happens for Secretariat, Remember the Titans, Seabiscuit, you name it. Any movie with, who's the dad? Dennis Quaid as the dad, he's the father of everyone. So, my life is a story too, so maybe I was helping to make that happen a little longer. As I approached each decision point, I would reflect on my story. I was proud of my career, but to be honest, I wasn't. I always thought I could have done more. And I'm awed by the people in service, the personal sacrifices they take, the men and women, the sacrifices they've made. And I never thought mine quite measured up to that level just because of the nature of our business. It's just different than some of the things that a lot of people, even in this audience, have done in their careers. A career in acquisition doesn't exactly conjure up the same gravitas as a SEAL or a Navy EOD diver, or these guys that are really going into harm's way, and as a leader, commander, sending people into harm's way. I did one deployment, and I'm really glad I did. I did live in danger. We were shot at. Rockets and mortars were coming at us. Bullets went over my head. It took that experience to fully appreciate the people who are really going into harm's way. And I just kind of felt like I could do more. So I kept doing it. I still don't think my family knows what I've been doing for the last 35 years. Duke, thanks for trying to explain it. Katie asks me 100 questions, and I still don't think I give her a satisfactory answer. But while I didn't set out to serve as long as I did, there was always an element. I'm going to do this because it's hard, and I'm going to keep doing it. I still have that wrestler's mentality that tells me to do hard things, make me stronger, to be able to do more hard things. I used to be a huge Baltimore Orioles fan before we got baseball in D.C. Grew up with Cal Ripken, was a big fan, followed the streak when it was happening, went to the games. I caught a foul ball like 3 games before the streak was obtained, and I ate that whole thing up. So I guess I love that kind of story. So maybe I'm a little bit of a Cal Ripken up here, keeping the streak going. I decided as long as I had the opportunity and the access and opportunity to influence and add value, I would just keep doing it. Folks in the front row helped me do that, and others out there. I really appreciate it. I never regretted for one day putting the uniform on. I don't know what people wear now anyway, so I don't know what I'm going to put on tomorrow. I still appreciate it when people say thank you for your service. I always say it's my privilege. I truly believe that. And if the reason to start serving was valid, the reason to continue is the same. I believe in our country and what we're doing, what we stand for, the job we have to do because few others can do it for us. General Bartolome, when he came on board 2 years ago, asked what I was going to do in the last couple of years. I told him I'd like to do something meaningful, something hard. So I think that's what we did. The Franklin Affordable Mass. Franklin team, I wish we had a cheer. We don't have a cheer. If I did, I would prompt it now, because I had a cheer with the JASM folks, some of who are here, otherwise known as Long Rangers. A little tame, but thank you. I didn't give you any warning. I also love the Air Force because of, you guys, everybody says it up here, is the people. Reflecting on the network of friends you build through the years, you couldn't plan for all the cross-sections of experiences you share with so many people. The longer you serve, the richer and deeper those shared experiences grow. You don't get to pick who sticks around, though. It's like you hang out with everybody, you don't know who's going to still be around. So you just have to invest in everybody. And General B's been trying to do this with our young people today. I mean, I really wanted lieutenants here today, so we had to recruit them to be here, because I want them to see what this could be, if they want to keep doing it, what it could really mean. But some stick around and some don't. Some we have to say goodbye to much more suddenly than we ever would have liked. Folks in the room know who I'm talking about. But you build on a common bond of experience with each assignment, it just gets stronger. If you're sitting here thinking about all the different times our paths have crossed through the years, I'm talking to you. And I'm hoping you can appreciate how much I value that bond that we share, even if I'm not calling you out by name today, because we don't have any more time. But I have a couple of quick stories to tell, because this is what I take away from my experience. People have amazing stories. You just have to find them. Sydney's the best at asking these questions to get these stories out of people. But second lieutenant, brand new, human factors engineer, there to enforce requirements for the human factors engineers in the world on ICBMs. What is that? It's not designing a cockpit or a helmet. We don't have those in ICBMs. So what did I do? I would go to the requirements meeting, and we were paired with these TRW, these old hats, right? This guy was as old as dirt. Earl Van Alstyne, Earl the Pearl, we called him. He would send me these meetings and he'd say, Lieutenant, I can't speak for the government. You have to do it. You have to enforce these requirements for fasteners. I'm like, what? You can only have certain hang with me, Alf. You can only have certain fasteners, because the other ones, the maintainers, they strip them out, and then they put all these counterfeit ones in there. You've got to pound the table for these fasteners. I'm like, oh my gosh, how did I get here? I go to this meeting. I'm a second lieutenant. These captains and majors, they eat me up. They chew me up, just spit me out and send me back. And I go, Earl, they don't buy it. Why is this so important? It's in the mill standard. Mill standard 1472C. We're up to H now, by the way. And we go back and forth. And I was like, how do we even know these requirements are right? I mean, who wrote this thing? He said, I did. He wrote the mill standard. There's more on that guy. He's incredible. The thing is that people teach you to think differently, and you got to learn to ask the right questions. So I'm up in Twin Cities. Mary Reed is my deputy. We're both swimming for exercise. She had been going to the pool and learning to swim better and hold her breath, and she was swimming laps. And we were comparing times. And she was getting there and back in 27 seconds, and I was still hitting 32, and I'm like, I was younger than her. I mean, respectfully, Mary, who's probably watching right now, I should have been killing her in the pool. And every day I check my times and 27, I think I'm 26. So for 2 weeks, I'm studying how to swim better. And I finally talking Mary, you got to tell me, how do you do this? So Oh, I have to have my flippers on. I would drown if I didn't have my flippers. Like, ugh, flippers. All right, I got to skip over stories and just get cut to the end now because I know it's been long. Let's go to gifts. Real quick. Some of these you have to open now. Now I have to remember who's who. Oh, Duke, these are for you. Open it now. I'll explain it while I'm getting the next one. You let me borrow those mess dress kernel boards. I don't need them anymore. Thank you. Dad, this is for you. I'll explain it. You can open it. Dad's father was a shipbuilder in Newport News. 10 years ago, they decommissioned the USS Enterprise. That was one of the ships, probably the last one that he worked on. And that is a commemorative Christmas tree decoration from the decommissioning of the USS Enterprise. So, I've been hanging on that for 10 years, but I can top it. Parker's big into basketball, but he also played baseball. There's other stories about that. We don't have time for that. I've been hanging on to that for a long time. Pull that sucker out. This is a commemorative Cal Ripken when the streak was attained baseball. I got that in 1995, thinking that maybe we would have a son one day, and maybe he'd love baseball, and I could give it to him. Then Parker played baseball in high school, and then he wrote an essay for college that was titled, I Suck at Baseball. He wasn't that bad, but comparatively to his skills in basketball, it was diminished. But, son, hey, yeah, bring it. Thanks, Dad. All right. I skipped over the flowers. Max. All right, Max, bring that other flowers in those bags. We got to get going with this thing. Mom, I love you. I already said all the things why.
Thank you, honey. I love you.
Barbara, my other mother, likewise.
Thank you, dear. Appreciate it.
If there's one thing that I can make my wife happy giving to her, it's flowers. I used to get them half price from the Pentagon on every Friday. Set the bar way too high. Have never achieved it. Sometimes she goes to the store and brings them home herself, and I say, oh, I got you flowers again today. How nice.
Thank you.
Girls, these are for you. Crap, they're out of order. This one's yours, Maddie.
Thanks, Dad.
You don't have to open it now. It's really nice. It's also really nice. This is on behalf of all the movers. At some point, they lost something important, and that's for you. You can look at that later. I do want to acknowledge something really important. We don't have time for it, but we're going to unveil the shadow box that my very good friend, Commander retired Ryan Bednar, is he over here? Give him a high sign. What's special about that box is that my dad got cherry wood from Virginia, carted it down here, raw lumber. They planed it down. He and Dad worked on that thing for hours and hours. You're going to be amazed and be jealous of that. It's super cool, and I haven't even seen it myself yet. And I think we can be done now. Wait. I'll end on this. Where I find comfort is knowing that the many people in this room will stay a part of the Athearn family story after I take off this uniform. So let's give that a shot. That's it. What? I have to stand here? Okay. Now can I?
Thank you, sir. The men and women of the United States Air Force are proud to have served with Colonel Athearn and assure him that he will always be a valuable member of the Air Force. We wish him and Cheryl every success in their future endeavors. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand as Pastor Troy Hamilton offers a benediction.
Please bow and pray with me. Almighty God and Heavenly Father, I thank you for the faithful life of your servant, Chris Athearn. Thank you, Lord, for his faithful wife, Cheryl, who has been his faithful companion in the wind beneath his wings. Lord, I thank you for Chris's faithful service to our country for 35 years in the United States Air Force. And as he transitions now into this new chapter of his life as a civilian, I pray that you would fit him with purpose and your power to use his life experience and his wisdom to make a difference in the lives of many people for your glory. Lord, I want to pray the words of a wise man many years ago, that he would trust in the Lord with all of his heart, that he would lean not on his own understanding, that he would in all of his ways acknowledge you and that you would direct his paths. Now to him who is able to keep you from stumbling and to present you blameless before the presence of his glory with great joy, to the only God our Savior, through Jesus Christ our Lord, be glory, majesty, dominion, and authority before all time, now and forever. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Hamilton. Please remain standing for the singing of the Air Force song and the departure of the official party. In conclusion, I invite you to congratulate Colonel Athearn and his family at the receiving line and to enjoy light refreshments. Also, please join the Athearn family at the retirement party at the Compass Rose. You're all invited. Thank you and have a great Air Force Day.